He could buy 1,000 diamonds, but the way she looked at him like he was just a man, not a CEO, was the only thing that ever made him feel seen. "Hi, my beautiful family. I have missed you all. Thank you so for sticking around with me. I truly appreciate your love and support." If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. The nanny always arrived 10 minutes early, her footsteps barely audible across the marble floor of the penthouse. That's how she preferred it: quiet, unnoticed, efficient. Callie Matthews could blend into a room like a shadow. It wasn't something she was proud of, just something she'd learned to survive. People didn't ask too many questions when you were invisible. In the mornings, she hummed softly while tying 6-year-old Ava's shoes, braiding her hair with nimble fingers that once scribbled case law briefs in Columbia University's libraries. But that life was a lifetime ago, before debt collectors, before her mother's diagnosis, before she gave up everything for someone who didn't live long enough to say thank you. "Are you magic?" Ava asked once, watching Callie fix a broken doll with nothing but glue and a paperclip. Callie smiled. "No, baby, I'm just practiced." She didn't speak much to Ava's father, Mr. Graham Thorne, CEO of Thorne Tech, billionaire, stoic, controlled, always 5 steps ahead of everyone else and always 5 steps removed from his own emotions. He was polite, distant, always working, the type of man who loved his daughter fiercely but had no idea how to express it outside of logistics and high thread count sheets. So when he asked Callie into his office one Thursday morning, she assumed it was about Ava, or her hours, or some new protocol. It was not. "There's a gala," he said, not looking up from his desk. She blinked. "Okay, I'm expected to bring someone." "Understood," still confused. He finally met her eyes. There was something unreadable there. "Would you come?" A pause, a full breath. I don't understand." "To the gala, with me." She stared at him. "I know it's unusual," he added, leaning back in his chair, "but I trust you, and I'm tired of pretending that the only women who belong at my side are the ones who want to be photographed." A breath caught in her throat. "But I'm the nanny," she said quietly. "You're also the only person who makes this house feel like a home." Silence, heavy, hanging. "I don't have a dress," she whispered, as if testing the dream before waking. "I'll take care of it." He said it like it was simple, like he hadn't just cracked open the door to a life she'd locked away years ago. The car was silent on the ride over. Not awkward, just suspended, like the moment before a deep breath. Callie sat in the back of the sleek black town car beside Graham, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The dress he had arranged for her, an elegant midnight blue gown with delicate lace sleeves, fit like it had been made for someone else, someone who belonged in ballrooms, not a nanny. She hadn't even looked in the mirror for too long before leaving. It felt dangerous, like seeing a version of herself she'd given up on. Graham looked at her only once. "You look stunning," he said simply. Callie murmured a thank you, the words catching in her throat. The gala was held at the rooftop of the Empire Meridian Hotel, a shimmering cage of glass and gold. Waiters in white gloves floated through the crowd. Chandeliers glittered above towering arrangements of calla lilies and orchids. Every corner whispered wealth. Callie held her clutch like a lifeline. Everyone turned when Graham walked in. Everyone stared when they saw her beside him. Smiles that didn't reach eyes, whispers behind champagne flutes, quick, slicing glances that undressed her. Not with desire, but with judgment. Callie straightened her back. She'd promised herself she wouldn't shrink. An hour in, they stood near a fountain, watching as executives and their wives exchanged pleasantries like currency. "You don't have to stay long," Graham murmured. "I'm okay," Callie replied. "It's just, what? I don't think they're used to seeing you with someone like me." He glanced sideways at her. "That's not your problem, it's theirs." It was the closest thing to a shield he could offer. She appreciated it, but it wasn't enough. Then came her, Candace Morrow, head of PR, blonde, perfect, plastic in all the expensive ways. She approached like a queen greeting a servant. "Graham, lovely to see you," she cooed, eyes flicking to Callie. And this must be Ava's nanny. Callie extended a hand. Callie Matthews. Candace gave her fingers a limp shake, like touching charity. Well, Candace said brightly, turning to the group of VPs around her. Graham's always been generous with his staff. It's heartwarming, really. There was a beat of silence. Callie opened her mouth, then closed it. Graham stiffened, his jaw ticked, and then Callie said calmly, clearly, I was top of my class at Columbia Law before I became a nanny. The air snapped. One of the VPs blinked. I'm sorry. What? I left to care for my mother when she was dying. And after that, survival didn't leave much room for suits and courtrooms. So yes, I became a nanny, and I've never felt more needed. Her voice didn't shake, but Candace did. Well, the PR head said coolly, how noble of you. Callie smiled politely. Yes, it is. Then she turned to Graham, who was staring at her with something unreadable in his eyes, something like awe. She felt her heart race. She had never spoken about her past at an event like this, in a room like this, to people like this, but she wasn't ashamed anymore. She wasn't invisible anymore. They moved to a quieter corner. Graham handed her a glass of water. You didn't have to say all that, he said, voice low. Yes, I did, she replied. He nodded slowly. I've had hundreds of women on my arm at events like this, he said, and not one of them ever made me want to leave. She blinked. Do you want to leave? He looked at her, really looked. I do now, and suddenly the gala didn't feel like a prison. It felt like a test they'd both just passed, together. Have you ever surprised a room full of people who underestimated you? What happened? Let's talk about it in the comments. Callie didn't speak much on the drive home. The silence between them wasn't cold, but it wasn't warm either. It was uncertain, like the space after an earthquake, when you're still waiting to see if there'll be an aftershock. Graham stole a few glances at her in the darkened car. She wasn't shrinking like she used to. She wasn't folding into herself, but she wasn't relaxed either. I'm sorry, he said suddenly, quietly. She turned to him, surprised. For what? For letting her talk to you like that? For not stopping it? Callie gave him a small, sad smile. You didn't start it. No, but I let it happen. Her fingers brushed the clutch in her lap. I don't need defending, Graham. I don't know, a reason not to feel like this was a mistake. He looked at her then, really looked. Was it? She hesitated. I don't know yet. The car pulled up to the building. The doorman opened her door. She stepped out without waiting for him to say good night. He didn't follow. The next morning, Callie made Ava's breakfast in silence. French toast, strawberries on the side, just the way she liked it. Graham walked in late. No tie, no smile. He nodded at Callie like a colleague. Not like the man who'd asked her to the gala. Not like the man who almost kissed her with his eyes alone. Morning, he said to his daughter. Hi, Daddy. Ava beamed. Callie didn't look at him, didn't speak. Graham hated it. He wanted to say something, anything, but he didn't know what. He didn't want to make it worse, didn't want to risk it unraveling, so instead, he said nothing. In the hallway, as Callie gathered her things to leave for the day, he stepped forward. You were incredible last night. She looked up. Her eyes were tired. Thank you. People are still talking about it. I'm sure they are. I meant what I said, Callie, about not wanting to be there with anyone else. She paused, fingers tightening around her bag strap. But you still let them talk about me, like I was disposable, like I was a risk. He flinched. I didn't think it would go that way. I just wanted to be different, she interrupted. I know. You wanted to shock them. But I wasn't your statement, Graham. I'm a person. He opened his mouth, closed it again. She stepped back. I just need a little space. He nodded slowly. I'll give you that. She walked away without looking back. He stood in the hallway, alone, with all the things he should have said echoing in his chest like ghosts. That night, he sat at his desk long after Ava had gone to bed. Her laughter echoed faintly from a video on his phone, one of Callie and her at the park, spinning in circles. It made his heart ache. He had brought her to the gala because he trusted her, because she was the only person in years who didn't want anything from him, because he felt something he hadn't let himself name. But now he was terrified that bringing her into his world had broken whatever fragile thing had been growing between them. Callie, meanwhile, lay awake in her tiny apartment above the bakery, staring at the ceiling fan. She wasn't ashamed of what she'd said, not for a second, but she wasn't sure how to face him now. Not when everything was so exposed, not when her heart had leapt at the sound of his voice saying, "I trust you." Not when she'd wanted to believe, if only for a night, that she could belong in his world. She didn't regret the truth, but she hated how lonely it felt afterward. Have you ever said something true and then feared you'd gone too far? Tell me in the comments, did the truth hurt or heal in the end? The rain came out of nowhere. Thunder cracked above the city like a warning shot, and by the time Callie reached the front of the Thorn building, she was already soaked through. She hadn't planned on being here. She was supposed to be off for 2 days. Time to clear her head. But Graham's assistant had called. Ava was sick, bad fever, asking for Callie. Of course she came. Of course she ran. Inside the penthouse, Graham opened the door himself, tie loose, hair a mess, worry written all over his face. "She's upstairs," he said without preamble. Callie nodded and rushed past him, the sound of her dripping shoes lost in the echo of the marble floor. When she entered Ava's room, her heart cracked open. The little girl was curled in bed, face flushed, damp curls stuck to her forehead. She was whimpering softly, clutching a stuffed animal that Callie had stitched back together months ago. "Callie," Ava's voice was weak. "I'm here, sweet pea," Callie whispered, kneeling beside the bed. "I'm not going anywhere." For the next 3 hours they both sat at Ava's bedside. Graham brought water, cool cloths, medicine. He hovered, helpless, while Callie worked with gentle hands and quiet efficiency. "She's stabilizing," Callie finally murmured, brushing Ava's hair from her face. "Just needs rest now." Graham exhaled like he'd been holding his breath all day. He slumped in the chair across from her. Rain pattered against the windows like a lullaby. Ava snored softly. Silence stretched between them, not empty this time, but heavy with everything unsaid. "I shouldn't have brought you to that gala," he said. Callie looked up. Her voice was soft. "Why did you?" He swallowed. "Because I wanted them to see what I see. Someone strong, brilliant, good." Her eyes flickered. "You could have just told me that. I didn't think words would be enough. They would have been better than silence." A beat passed. "I didn't bring you to make a statement, Callie," he said. "I brought you because I wanted you there, because being around you feels like peace, and I haven't felt that in a long time." Her breath caught. "You don't get to say things like that," she said quietly, "then disappear into your silence." He nodded, ashamed. "I know." She leaned back, tired. "You're scared," she said. "Of what? Of what it means if this us is real." His eyes met hers. "Are you scared too?" Callie nodded once, terrified. They sat like that for a long moment. Then Graham reached over and gently placed a blanket over her shoulders. "You're freezing." "Thanks." They didn't touch. They didn't need to. Later, as the storm still raged outside, they found themselves in the kitchen, barefoot, half asleep, sharing leftover pasta straight from the container. "I used to want to be a senator," Callie said suddenly, a laugh catching in her throat. "Can you imagine?" Graham looked at her, amused. "You'd terrify Congress." "I'd make them cry," she said with a mock-serious nod. "You'd change everything." A pause. She looked at him. "You don't scare me, Graham." He blinked. "Everyone else does, but not you." "Why?" "Because when you're not pretending, you're just human, sad, brilliant, a little awkward with emotions." He chuckled. "A little?" She smiled. "Okay, a lot." Another pause. He set down his fork. "I want to be better at that." "At what?" "Not pretending." She looked at him, eyes softening. "Then stop trying to manage me like a business risk," she said gently. "Just be here. Be real." He nodded slowly. "I'm trying." Callie didn't reply, but she didn't leave either, and for now, that was enough. It was late. Ava was finally asleep, fever broken, cheeks flushed but peaceful. Callie lingered in the hallway, unsure if she should stay or go. She stood barefoot, her dress from earlier swapped for one of Graham's oversized shirts she borrowed when her own clothes were soaked. She could hear him moving in the living room, pacing, pouring another cup of coffee, starting and stopping a fire in the fireplace like he couldn't commit to warmth. She almost turned away. But then, You still want to be a senator?" His voice, low, gentle. She stepped into the room. "No," she said, "not anymore." He looked at her, waiting. "I thought the world needed fixing," she continued. "Turns out I needed fixing first." He sat down on the edge of the couch, cup in hand. "What happened?" She didn't sit. "College. I got through most of law school on scholarships and caffeine, worked 2 jobs, lived on canned soup, and then," her voice softened, "my mom got sick, cancer, stage 4, and she had no one else." Graham's eyes flickered. "So you dropped out?" Callie nodded. "I thought I'd take a year, help her get through chemo, go back when she got better, and she didn't." Callie's voice cracked, just slightly. She was gone 6 months later. Silence. Not cold, not empty, heavy. Then she added, "By then I was broke, angry, tired. I took the first job I could. I didn't plan to be a nanny. It just became something that mattered." Graham set his coffee down and stood. He walked to the window and stared out at the city. "I never knew that. You never asked." He nodded, guilt in every breath. Then she asked quietly, "What about you? What broke you?" He turned. "The car accident," he said simply. Callie's eyes widened. She hadn't expected him to answer. "Not like that. Not so bare." "My wife died instantly," he added. "Ava was too. I was supposed to be driving, but I stayed late at a board meeting. She took the car instead." "A beat. I've been trying to make up for it ever since." Callie stepped closer. "You blame yourself." He didn't deny it. "Everyone thinks I buried myself in work because I'm ambitious," he said. "But the truth is, I did it because if I ever slowed down, I'd feel everything I lost." Her eyes softened. "I used to think grief would kill me," she said. "Turns out it just sits quietly in the room, waiting." Graham turned to face her. "How do you live with it?" "You don't," she whispered. "You carry it. But some days, when you're lucky, someone helps lift it." He stared at her for a long time, and she let him. No fixing, no pretending, just 2 people, wrecked and real, standing in the soft light of their shared truths. Later, as she made tea in the kitchen, Graham appeared behind her. "You never told me what your mum was like." Callie smiled faintly. She laughed loud, sang Motown in the kitchen. "She always made me believe I was meant for something big. And now I think I was meant for something real." He handed her a mug. Their fingers brushed. Callie didn't flinch. Graham didn't retreat. They stood like that for a while, 2 broken hearts beginning to beat again, side by side. It was the first morning in weeks that Ava laughed, a real laugh, the kind that bubbled up from her belly and spilled out like music. Callie sat on the floor of the nursery, her hair pulled up in a messy bun, wearing pajama pants and a t-shirt with a faded cartoon character. Ava was building a lopsided block tower. Callie clapped every time it leaned but didn't fall. Graham stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame, coffee in hand, watching them. "She hasn't smiled like that since kindergarten started," he murmured. Callie looked up. "Kids know when a home is heavy." His eyes locked with hers. "And now, feels lighter," she said. He didn't answer, but he smiled. That evening they shared takeout on the balcony. No tablecloth, no wine glasses, just cartons of noodles and chopsticks and the soft glow of string lights Ava had begged to hang weeks ago. Callie leaned back in a deck chair, feet tucked under her. "You know," she said, twirling noodles on her chopsticks, "this is my first night eating dinner on a balcony in Manhattan." He blinked. "Really?" She smiled. "Most of my nights are spent grading spelling homework and reheating mac and cheese." Graham laughed. "I thought you loved mac and cheese." She raised an eyebrow. "I love Ava. That's not the same thing." He nudged her foot with his. "What do you love?" The question hung in the air. She thought for a moment. "Quiet mornings, music with horns, stories where the girl gets to save herself." He smiled. "You've saved more than yourself, Carly." She looked at him, eyes wide, vulnerable. "Don't say things like that unless you mean them," she said softly. "I mean it," he replied. And for the first time, she believed him. Later, inside, they found themselves in the kitchen again. He made her tea. She sat on the counter. The radio played low, some old Sam Cooke tune that melted between them like honey. "Dance with me," he said suddenly. She blinked. "What?" "Just for a minute." She hesitated. Then she slid off the counter, placed her hand in his, and let him pull her in. They danced slowly, the kind of slow that wasn't about rhythm or steps, just breathing, just presence. At one point, Callie rested her head against his chest. His hand was at her back. Her breath caught. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I." She tilted her head up. Their eyes met. It was so quiet she could hear his heartbeat. They leaned in, not all the way, just close enough. Their lips almost touched. Then Ava coughed from the next room. They pulled apart. Callie stepped back, laughing softly, saved by the 6-year-old. He chuckled, but his voice was hoarse. Probably for the best. She touched her chest. Yeah, probably. But she didn't move farther away, and neither did he. That night, she slept in the guest room upstairs, just in case Ava needed her again. But she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, remembering how his hand had felt on her waist. She wasn't used to being seen like that, and she didn't know what scared her more, that he saw her now, or that she didn't want to be invisible anymore. In his room, Graham stared at the spot on his chest where her head had rested. His life had been clean lines and sealed doors for so long. She had entered like wind, uninvited, unavoidable, unforgettable. The morning began with silence. Callie woke to the hum of the city below, sunlight bleeding through the curtains. She stretched, expecting to hear Ava's little voice or Graham's coffee brewing in the kitchen. Instead, she heard the buzz of her phone on the nightstand. 14 missed messages, 3 voicemails, and a headline. Billionaire CEO linked to Nanny and Gala scandal. Thorne's romantic risk. Her heart dropped. She clicked the article. There it was, a blurry photo of her beside Graham, her face partially turned, mouth open mid-sentence, his hand gently guiding her through the Gala crowd. An anonymous source from Thorne Tech, describing the relationship as unprofessional and irresponsible. There was no quote from Graham, no denial, but no defense either. Callie's throat tightened. She found him in the kitchen, standing in front of the island, staring at his phone like it might burn a hole through his hand. "You saw it?" he asked, not looking at her. Callie nodded, arms folded. He rubbed his jaw. "I didn't authorize that. I didn't talk to anyone, but you didn't stop it either," she said. His eyes snapped to hers. "It broke overnight, Callie. I was trying to figure out how to manage the fallout." Her voice rose slightly. "Damage control before it impacts your board. That's not what this is, isn't it?" A pause. He didn't answer, and that was the answer. Callie swallowed hard. "I told you I didn't want to be your statement," she whispered. "But that's what I am now, right? The story you didn't ask for, but still won't claim." Graham stepped forward. "That's not fair, isn't it?" Her voice cracked. "I stood next to you in a room that didn't want me there. I defended myself when no one else would. And now, when they're calling me names behind headlines, you're quiet." "I'm trying to protect you," he snapped. "No, you're trying to protect your image," she shot back. Silence. He clenched his fists. "You think this is easy for me? I've got shareholders, a company, a daughter to think about." She stared at him. "You think I'm not thinking about Ava?" He exhaled slowly, defeated. "You can't be both proud of me in private and ashamed of me in public," she said. "I'm not ashamed of you. Then why does it feel like I am the one who has something to lose?" He didn't have an answer. She packed in 15 minutes. Graham didn't try to stop her. Not even when Ava cried and clung to her legs. Not even when Callie knelt and whispered, "You'll always be my sunshine, sweet girl." Not even when she looked at him at the door, eyes glassy, voice steady, and said, "I would have stood beside you, Graham, if you'd let me. But I won't keep fighting to matter to someone who only sees me when no one else is looking." And then she left, without another word, without a backwards glance, and all he could do was watch. That night, Graham sat in Ava's room while she slept, her stuffed animal clutched tight to her chest, and in the silence he replayed every word Callie had said, every truth he hadn't been brave enough to echo. Across the city, Callie unpacked in her tiny apartment. She folded the dress she wore to the gala and tucked it in a box as if it belonged to someone else. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking not about the gala, but about the way he looked at her in the kitchen, like she was a problem to solve, not a person to hold. 3 days passed, no calls, no texts, no one knocked, just silence, the kind that rings louder than noise. Callie sat at the edge of her bed, dressed for work but unmoving. She was back nannying. Different family, different child, different neighborhood. A part-time gig while she figured out what came next. But everything felt smaller. Not the rooms, not the work, herself. She hadn't cried. Not yet. She wasn't sure she deserved to. She had walked away. She had chosen truth. But it still felt like loss. A box sat unopened at the corner of her room, the gala dress inside. She thought about burning it or donating it, but she couldn't, because deep down she hadn't stopped hoping he'd come find her, and he didn't. Across the city, Graham sat in his office long after everyone had left. The skyline blinked outside the windows like a world he no longer recognized. Ava had asked for Callie every night, each time he had lied. She's just busy. She'll call soon. She misses you. The worst part was he didn't know if the last one was true, because he hadn't reached out, not once. He had convinced himself it was noble. Give her space. Respect her decision. Don't make it about him. But deep down, he knew the truth. He hadn't called because he was scared. Scared she'd changed her mind. Scared she'd tell him the thing he couldn't bear to hear, that she had meant it when she walked away. Then, late one night, he opened Ava's desk drawer. Inside was a folded note, childlike handwriting, misspelled words, glitter stickers. Callie, I love you. You make my heart big. Daddy is sad without you but doesn't say it. Maybe he's scared, but I'm not. Come back soon, okay? Your sunshine, Ava. Graham stared at the note for a long time. He hadn't known she wrote it. He hadn't known she knew. He felt his chest crack, and then he opened his laptop. Callie was brushing her teeth when the ping came through. She almost ignored it, but then she saw the sender's name, Graham. Her hands trembled. The message was short. I should have fought for you. I didn't, but I'm still here, and if you are too, please tell me what I need to say to fix this. She stared at the screen. Tears welled, because this wasn't a press release. It wasn't strategy. It was raw, and so she replied, say something real, something you've never said before, not to anyone, and maybe I'll listen. She didn't expect a response, but a few minutes later, her phone pinged again, a voice note. She hit play. His voice came through the speaker, hoarse, barely above a whisper. I wasn't afraid of the media or the board. I was afraid of loving you in front of the world and not being enough when you loved me back. But I was wrong. You didn't need me to be perfect. You just needed me to show up. I'm sorry I didn't. I am now. Silence. Breath. And then, I love you, Callie. I loved you when you walked into my life quietly, and I love you now that you've walked out loudly. Please let me try again. She pressed her hand to her mouth. The tears fell, slow and silent. She didn't type back. She didn't have the words yet, but the next morning she packed a small bag and headed for the address she knew by heart. It was just after 9 a.m. when Graham opened the door. He wasn't in a suit, no tie, no polished shoes, just jeans, a hoodie, and bare feet on the hardwood floor. He looked like a man who hadn't slept. Callie stood on the other side, hair wind-blown, coffee in hand, eyes wide but steady. They stared at each other. Neither said anything at first. Then she spoke. I listened to the voice note, she said softly. His throat tightened. I meant every word. I know. A pause. And then, I didn't come to forgive you, Graham. Not right away. He nodded, bracing. I came, she continued, stepping forward, because I want to see if we can build something that doesn't need fixing in the first place. He let out a breath like a man surfacing after nearly drowning. I'll do anything, he said. Start by not hiding, she whispered. Not from me, not from them. If you love me, don't keep it quiet. She wasn't asking for a ring. She was asking to be seen, to be claimed in a world that tried to erase her. He nodded slowly. Okay, come with me. 2 hours later, Graham stood in front of a room full of investors and executives. Quarterly shareholder meeting, packed. Callie stood quietly at the back, unsure why he'd brought her. He adjusted the microphone. I'd like to begin today by saying something personal, he said. The room shifted. I've made a lot of decisions in my life that were based on strategy, on optics, on what would play well, but not this one. He looked toward the back of the room, right at her. This is Callie Matthews. She's brilliant, brave, and she's changed my life. not as a PR move, not as a scandal, but as something real. Murmurs rippled through the room. He didn't flinch. "I won't apologize for who I love," he said clearly, "because loving her has made me a better man, and if that's bad for business, then we're doing business wrong." Gasps. Some applause. One woman in the front wiped a tear. Callie. She didn't move. She just looked at him, and he smiled. Not nervous, not polished, but free. Outside afterward, she stepped up beside him. "You meant that?" she asked. He looked at her. "I meant every syllable." She shook her head. "You're insane." "I'm in love," he said, and this time she didn't pull away when he reached for her hand. 3 months later, the city felt different. The headlines had faded, the whispers had turned to curiosity, some even to admiration. They didn't throw a wedding. No white dress, no chandeliers, no press. But one Sunday, on the same balcony where they once ate takeout under string lights, Ava stood between them, holding a drawing she made with 3 stick figures and a house. Callie smiled. "What's this?" Ava grinned. "It's our family." Graham kissed her temple. "Looks perfect to me." Callie leaned her head against his shoulder. She still worked with kids, but now on her own terms, teaching, advocating. He still ran a billion-dollar company, but now he left work at 5. That night, as rain tapped gently on the windows, Graham pulled something from the drawer, a folded piece of paper, the original Gala invitation. She laughed. "You kept that?" "I kept everything." She unfolded it and found a new note scribbled on the back. "Thank you for saying yes to a world you didn't think you belonged in, because now it belongs to you." Her throat tightened. "I love you, Graham," she whispered. He pressed his forehead to hers. "I know, and I'll say it out loud every time you forget." She wasn't the nanny anymore. She was the woman who reminded a billionaire how to feel, and the little girl inside herself how to be seen. Have you ever been underestimated, only to rise above it in your own way? Share your story in the comments. It might remind someone else they're worth being seen too. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine, so do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.